So hi, on the Noise Podcast. I'm Shane,
I'm Glory.
and we're here with
I am Jeris Johnson.
and we're asking some
Hello.
questions about his upcoming album, Dragonborn. So congrats on that, by the way. How do you feel about the response to the announcement so far?
Very good. Very good. This is my spiritually my first album, I would
Mhm.
say. Um, Obviously as an artist, you always hate what you did many years ago.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I do feel like my previous first album was more of a collection of songs,
Mhm.
Mhm.
that I had made over a period of time, and this album, Dragonborn, is an album.
Yeah,
It's a
this
real.
one's got the cohesion.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
it
Yeah, you
fucking
guys have heard
rocks.
it? You guys
Yes,
have heard
Oh
it?
yeah.
listen to it front to back today.
It's
Nice.
fucking incredible. Yeah.
Hell
Thank
yeah,
you. Thank you.
of
Of
course.
Love to hear
course.
that.
Hell yeah. So is there any meaning behind the album title or cover art?
Yeah, of course.
Mhm.
So the obvious like surface level, meaning is Dragonborn. I think technically it was originally used in as a Dungeons and Dragons class.
Mhm.
And but my personal, first run in with the word Dragonborn was with Skyrim, Elder
Yep.
Scrolls 5.
Mhm.
Very popular, very famous game. And that was a game that kind of that was the first time I really had ever experienced anything, maybe besides like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter when I was like super young, but that like got me into anything fantasy related like at all.
Mhm.
And so it had a pretty profound impact, just hit me at the right time, at the right age, whatever, just everything.
Mhm.
And in that game, you are being the Dragonborn, essentially, means like you're the chosen one,
Of
whatever.
course. Yeah.
Um, and throughout the album, there is a lot of, this album was me kind of making a real rock and metal album, whereas prior I would always, I always kind of ran from my metal roots. I grew up playing in bands and I had a metal band all throughout high school and stuff. And then for years after that, I went away from metal because I was bored of it, or I wanted to be cool and I wanted girls to like me or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah,
Like
Uh-huh.
I ran away from being like the nerdy metal kid, into trying to be something else.
Mhm.
And so a lot of this album process was me like accepting that this is what I was always meant to become.
Mhm.
This is the artist I was always meant to be.
Mhm.
This is the type of album I was always meant to make.
Mhm.
And so there are a lot of themes of yes, like the chosen one and my destiny and all of this stuff like that. But it's also really, really about just like truly accepting what makes you you
Mhm.
and not running away from it and not being ashamed of it and not being embarrassed by it or whatever it is that makes you you or whatever it is that you are into specifically,
Mhm.
instead of suppressing that, instead of hiding from that. This album is me fully embracing everything I love and everything I'm into and just giving it to the world and being like, here, you
hell
know.
yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So
Fuck
at
yeah.
what point in the process were you like, I'm going to embrace this side of myself? Was it before the record started, or like was it at some point in the process?
I mean, there's two sides to that. Before I started the record, I knew that I wanted to make a real rock and metal album,
Mhm.
and really push myself to go there, which I hadn't previously ever fully done. So I knew I wanted that piece of it, but the themes and the nerdy shit and the gaming shit and the fantasy shit and all this other stuff, all these other stories and all these other themes that became a massive part of the identity of the album, I did not have until a little ways into the album. And it was really when I made the song Welcome to Valhalla, which
Mhm.
is the fourth track on the album. And I was at the time playing the new God of War game, which was called God
Mhm.
of War Ragnarok.
Mhm.
Yep.
and there was all this music in there. It was like, whoa,
Hmm.
it's like old, super like aura filled Viking music in there. And I was like, bro, I bet I could like spin something like that into like a crazy fucking song.
Yeah.
And as soon as I did that, I was like, okay, this is something that I have never heard before. And
Hmm.
so this is now the new like dragon I'm going to be chasing on this album is like how can I lean more into this side of myself because that was really the turning point. And then I had some songs that made the album prior to that, but that was really the one where like the entire message of the album really started taking shape and it was like, oh shit. And that spawned like, I think I probably made most of the songs after I made that song,
Oh shit.
Mhm.
even some
Hmm.
of the singles and stuff
Hmm.
that have come before the album. So yeah, it was kind of a two-parter. I knew going in I wanted to make it a rock and metal album. I didn't exactly know that it was going to end up being this like fantasy themed epic kind of thing until a little bit later into the process.
Fuck yeah. I'm so happy you brought up Skyrim because I grew up playing that game. I've played it through too many damn times, like at least like 30 times.
Of course.
Um, and when I first saw the record name and the kind of the cover and shit, I was like, "Oh, I think I know what you might have been going for." And
Yeah.
it's so fucking cool. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I don't know. It was just a lot of I think it spawned out of me being like, okay, if I'm gonna embrace this, the rock and metal side of myself that I was maybe like embarrassed by or I ran away from forever, like what else have I ran away from in my life, at least publicly facing,
Yeah.
like what else could I embrace about myself more publicly that I haven't previously? So
Mm.
yeah, I had this guy on my desk the entire time. This little
Oh,
Hell yeah.
fuck yeah.
somebody gave that to me at a show, and I was like, well, I'm gonna have this on my desk the entire time I'm finishing this album.
Yeah,
That's fucking
damn
awesome.
right.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, wonderful.
So can you tell us a little bit about your writing process for the album?
Yeah, a lot of it was just me sitting where you see in my bedroom,
Mhm.
Mhm.
just making beats on laptops, making riffs, making song starts, just figuring out, I don't know. A lot of it was just me alone sitting
Mhm.
here. Had a couple co-collaborators, couple co-producers on the album, on a few songs on the album. A couple of songs are just me. A lot of the songs are me and a buddy of mine. His name is Sako. He's kind of been just like my right hand man for a long time. He really helps me like finish a lot of my ideas because I'm an artist and I like to start ideas, but I don't like to finish them that much.
Yeah.
And so he really helps me like focus on getting the tracks across the finish line
Mhm.
a lot, and kind of chipping away at the diamond and stuff. Um, and yeah, so it was a pretty tight knit unit. It wasn't too many people. A couple of my other songs I had, some help writing. Just depends. But I would probably say 75 to 80% of the music that you hear on the album is just me sitting on my laptop in my bedroom with my guitar and my Kemper, just just trying shit and figuring it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's obviously like a case by case basis, but in general, do you prefer like writing by yourself or like collaborating with other people, co-writes, things of that nature?
um, I like collaborating. Yeah, I do. I've definitely had made some of my best music. I've made some of my best music doing both
Mhm.
things. I like both.
Mhm.
I think I like collaborating at different stages like of an idea. Like
Mhm.
I really like collaborating with people at like the very beginning of an idea
Mhm.
Okay.
and then being able to work on it by myself for a while and really like dive in and see, okay, is this really good or was this something we just settled on in the room or whatever, like that kind of vibe I really like, and then collaborating with people to finish it.
Mhm.
I like it because I didn't mix any of the songs on the, I'm not a mixing engineer or anything. I just like being creative and getting the ideas out and stuff. And
Of course.
um, so every part of the process is collaborative, but I like having large stretches of time when I'm working on a song where it could just be me on the computer, just experimenting and making sure that this is like I've had so many songs start one way and then just completely fucking change. And like I'll be like I'll be into like writing the bridge of a song and I'll be like, "Oh, that's like a way better chorus than my chorus. Maybe that's the chorus." And then
Yeah.
maybe that now I have to make a new verse or maybe you just it's all a process, man. It's like a puzzle you're putting together over time.
Mhm.
That's how I look at a lot of making songs and music and stuff. It's like you start with a seed of an idea and then it's just endless like tinkering with the puzzle and
Mhm.
looking at it from different angles and solving different problems at different times until eventually, it comes together into something that feels finished, even
Yeah.
if it
Mhm.
never feels finished entirely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At some point, you
Um,
gotta hand the keys over to the powers that be.
at some point, you just gotta let people hear what you've made,
Yeah.
and that's
Exactly.
what it is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, as proud as I am of everything that I do, that's always even on this album, even on Dragonborn, there's things I'm like, oh man, maybe I would have played that a little bit differently, or maybe, but whatever. It's a moment in time. That's what I realize about
Exactly.
a lot of
Yeah.
art and stuff. It's like, it captures a moment in time.
Mhm.
And sometimes if you tinker with shit too much, it gets way worse.
Oh
And you
yeah.
go back to V1 and you're like, oh yeah, version one was like actually way better. And there was something magical about just it being like this, or,
Mhm.
so there's no one right way. There's no one
Mhm.
right way. Um, and everybody's different and stuff, but yeah, that's generally how I like to look at it.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
For sure. So, what song off the album took longest to write, and which one is your personal favorite?
Which one was the longest to write?
Hmm.
Definitely Welcome to Valhalla for sure.
Hmm.
It's just the longest song on the album. Or honestly, Finish Line, the very last song took a long time because I painstakingly, me and my buddy, my friend Black Swan, who's also my drummer, we painstakingly wrote those lyrics over and over and over again. And it took a long time especially for there being like not that many lyrics on the song. I just wanted every line to really mean something. That's probably the realest I've ever been on any piece of music was on Finish Line. And because I'm not necessarily somebody that like uses music as a outlet for my emotions. I oftentimes gravitate more towards using it as an escape
Hmm.
from
Oh,
my
okay.
emotions.
Hmm.
Like I can build my own world and just live in it and get away from myself,
Hmm.
a little bit and I can become somebody else.
Yeah.
Like playing a video game, like I
Hmm.
I almost view it in that, way where I can be whoever I want to be on the
Hmm.
mic,
Yeah.
and it is me, obviously. It's very
Of course.
authentic to me, but I'm not like a person that gravitates towards, digging into all of my problems and putting pen to paper and making every song about like my personal problems.
Hmm.
I just don't. I prefer to escape from them rather than deal with them. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but that one specifically, I knew as I was just kind of writing the melodies and the chords and the structure and stuff. I knew what I wanted it to be about, and I'll let everybody have their own interpretation about what that song is about because I think a lot of people will have their own interpretation of it. But that one took a long time too, so I'd say it's a toss up between those two.
Hmm.
Um, and then my favorite
Hmm.
song, you're asking me to pick my favorite child right
Yeah.
now,
Yep.
which is
Hard to do.
You
possible to
gotta do
do.
it.
Yeah. I mean, it's impossible to give it really is impossible to give one answer, but I'll give like three answers for different reasons.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, When the Darkness Comes is up there simply because of the way it has, um, you know, changed. Everyone always says that like this song changed my life and whatever, but it really kind of has. It's my biggest song ever.
Hmm.
And while it doesn't yet, like it hasn't caught up to like some of my songs from like 4 years ago that blew up on TikTok or whatever, it's like it will surpass it just based off of the amount of like streams and stuff it gets on a daily basis.
Hmm.
But and it's also a fully original song where, if people know anything about me, they'll know that I did a lot of like remixes or reloaded versions of songs like Last Resort Reloaded with Papa Roach. And
Hmm.
so When the Darkness Comes being like a wholly original song, that's also my new biggest song that happens to be on this album. I'm very proud of that. And I knew when I made it that I knew it was gonna be big when I made it. Sometimes you just get a feeling.
Mhm.
A song has an energy of its own. It has a life of its own. You just like, this just feels like it's gonna do something. I just
Yeah.
knew it was gonna do something, you know? So I love that one for that reason. I love Welcome to Valhalla because it's probably the craziest song I've ever made in terms of like, I'm a fucking genius, bro. People are gonna listen to this and be like, Jeris is fucking crazy, bro. He's
Yeah.
on another level, you
Mhm.
know. And I just had so much fun. That was one of those songs where I was so proud of making it
Mhm.
that like I almost don't even care if it comes out because I'm just like, I just made it so I could sit there and show my friends and we could just laugh,
Yeah.
about it because it's just one of those songs, or it's just so crazy
Mhm.
that I was just like, honestly, I feel like I got everything I wanted to get out of the song anyways. Of course, the gift is that you give it to the world and that people can hear it. And so of course I want people to hear it, but like spiritually speaking, I almost don't care if anybody ever listened to it because I'm just so proud that I made it.
Yeah.
Um, and I would say what's a good third one? I really like um I really like Story of Our Lives, which is the second song on the album, and I really like that one because it feels like I've been very obsessed with this like how do I make something feel really classic and iconic but obviously very new at the same time, you
Mhm.
know? And I feel like something that a lot of people don't pull from is those like just classic like four on the floor drums and guitar like iconic rock riff like kind
Mhm.
of thing. Like you don't really get a lot of in like the rock and metal space these days. It's a lot of breakdowns, a lot of time signatures and whatever the fuck.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I kind of got obsessed with listening to like a lot of like old rock and metal that was just more like straightforward like that and just had such good like riffs and like I really wanted to make like an iconic sounding riff,
Mhm.
that just felt like, man, how has nobody wrote like is this like a riff that already exists or
Yeah.
somebody already wrote this? Like I don't know, and I just came up with it and it just felt so good and I was like, oh, this is cool. Just like my 100,000 people in Germany like fist pumping metal
Fuck yeah.
Fuck
festival
yeah.
anthem,
Fuck yeah.
but I
Mhm.
had to still make it Jairus and stuff. So,
Of
so you have like the
course.
synth parts, you have like the hip hop verse,
Mhm.
you have like, some of the things that still make me me. I wanted to like throw in there and put just a different spin on like, because if I just did like a whole song that was just like a straightforward, like classic, metal song, then I'm not adding anything to the conversation.
Nope.
So I wanted to at least add something to that conversation. And I think
Mhm.
that song in particular is probably the closest I've gotten to making something that feels like super classic and super new at the same time, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
There you go.
Now, you mentioned like finish line. You're kind of talking about your emotions instead of running away and using music as an escape with that song in particular. So, is there any like additional nervousness or anxiety with putting out a song like that when you said like mainly you use music as an escape, not as an outlet?
Yeah. I do think that, I mean, in general, I feel like people receive it very well when you wear your heart on your sleeve.
Hmm.
Mhm.
If it's genuine,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it does so. And I think people can tell when something isn't genuine. Like, I think there's this like narrative that like, oh, like music listeners are like really stupid or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
and I actually don't think that's true. I think that uh majority of music listeners and just human beings in general actually have a very good intuition. Just like maybe if you're not, it's not maybe not conscious,
Mhm.
you know, but I think there's an unconscious thing where most people can tell if you've made something genuinely or not,
Yeah.
whether or not it seems genuine. Like there's so many people that, and I know this from firsthand experience, being in LA, being in many many sessions I've been in, and watching a lot of artists come and go and writers come and go and stuff.
Mhm.
I know that there are people in your favorite bands that write emotional sounding music because they
Mhm.
think that you will like it.
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
That is 100% a fact,
Mhm.
that they don't feel those. They're not actually depressed, or they're not actually going through what they're portraying they're going through. They think
Mhm.
that people will relate to it and like it,
Yeah.
so they make a song about it because they think it will be successful.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I actually, and sometimes it works. Sometimes you can camouflage it good enough if, maybe the singer's a really good singer and knows how to
Mm.
pour on the emotion or something. But like, I think a lot of the times you can very much tell when somebody wrote and made something genuinely, or whether
Yeah.
they wrote something because they think people will like it. And I think that Finish Line is one of those songs that people will definitely listen to and just know intuitively that I wrote it from a genuine place. I'm not trying to make some emotional anthem that I think people are going to like. You
Hmm.
know,
Mhm.
I just made a song that meant something to me.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing you can do for the listener. People think that you need to write stuff for other people, and maybe there's some validity to that, but usually the best thing for the listener is to make something for you,
Mm.
Yeah.
because people don't know what they don't know. People don't know what they actually want,
Yeah.
they just know that they like it when they hear it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times what makes music great and what makes people connect with music well is the humanity,
Mm.
is the authenticity. And in whatever way that manifests, people might say, oh, he's acting like a fucking Viking on this song over here, like that's not authentic. But it is, because I like that stuff and
Yeah.
I'm inspired
Exactly.
by that stuff or whatever. So um authenticity doesn't have to mean like emotions
Yeah.
necessarily, but it can, and it often does. And so I think any nervousness I may have previously had about dropping a song that was that real, I think just melts away, because again, it's another one of the songs that when you make a great song that's truly for you and your spirit, it sort of doesn't matter. It sort of doesn't matter how people react to it. Because if
Mm.
you truly, truly made it, it only hurts when you made it because you thought people would like it and then they hate it.
Ha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what hurts.
Yeah.
But if you just made it because you love it and people hate it, then at least for me, you can never take that away from me because
Mhm.
I love it.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I'm the painter here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There you
I
go.
made something. If I painted something I wanted to look at, then that's at the end of the day all that matters.
Hell yeah.
Damn right.
So, how'd the tracklist for the album come about? Did you guys write the opener for the opener, close be a closer, shuffle around and see what fits? What was that process like?
I knew. So as far as the opener goes, Dragonborn, I knew I wanted there to be a title track
Mhm.
because I came up with the title of the album before I had the song.
Mhm.
Nice.
And so I knew I wanted there to be a song called Dragonborn. I didn't know if it was going to be where it was going to go in the track list. And just the way when I sat down to write it, the way it came about, it felt very obvious that it should be the opener because, you know, it was a it was a storybook, kind of
Hmm.
esque bard sitting around the campfire spinning the tale
Yep.
type of song. And as soon as it started coming together at all, I was like, yep, that's opener. Previously, the opener actually was Welcome to Valhalla. That
Oh.
was the before
That's a badass opener.
Yeah.
before
It still
Dragonborn
worked.
existed,
Mm.
um, that was the opener. But as soon as I made Dragonborn, I was like, I think this should be the opener. And it's kind of a ballad too, which is like interesting to me
Mhm.
to have like a little bit more ballady of an opener. And um I like a good album opener that feels like an opener.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
want to listen to an album, feel like I'm experiencing an album, not like I'm just experiencing 10 singles that somebody put
Yes.
in album form. I want it to
Yeah.
feel like an experience. I want it to feel like I'm experiencing a musical movie.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um so I knew that, and then when we made Finish Line, and it was literally called Finish Line, I was like, well, maybe on the nose, but like it feels like this should be the last song,
Why the fuck not?
just because it also kind of I feel like leaves a bit more curiosity as to where I might go next. Because to be honest, I don't know if I'll make another fantasy album. I'm not sure yet.
Mhm.
Okay,
I may not. We'll see which way the winds guide me,
hmm
you know. But I don't know yet. I don't know yet where I might go. It's definitely not the only thing I'm into. It's like I only have to make music about fucking dragons and Vikings for the rest of my life or something, you
Be
know. It's like
badass, pretty,
that's
pretty
I mean,
honestly.
it'd be cool. It'd be cool. I
Yeah.
wouldn't hate it, but you know, I do feel like I explored so much of what
Mhm.
I wanted to explore with this album that like I don't know if I don't know if I'd have as much to explore the second time around. You
Yeah.
know? I feel like I've
Yeah.
kind of checked off a lot of the boxes I wanted to check with this idea, you
hmm
know? And maybe there's a few things I left on the table that I could do, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I'm gonna go next. So I liked Finish Line being a closer because it wasn't as tied to, I mean, you know, sonically and stuff and musically it feels cohesive with the rest of the project, but
Yeah.
you know, messaging wise, it wasn't a song about fucking dragons or something. You know what I mean? And not obviously
Yeah.
not every song is about, you know, sometimes I just use more like fantasy, alliteration and you know vocabulary to
Yeah.
write songs about other things too. Just depends per
Yeah.
song, um, but yeah, Finish Line was a bit more like of a you know, I could maybe go in any direction after this. So I liked ending it for that reason too. And plus it's you know, it's just a good thought-provoking and ending. So
So would you be able to tell us where your headspace is at while you're creating the record?
yes. I was definitely having a lot of fun.
Mhm.
I was in a very creative headspace. One of the first reviews of the album just came out, and it talked about the sort of underlying sense of humor that the album has. And
Yes.
I do think that I was wondering if people were going to catch on to that at all, because it is
Mhm.
serious, of course, but there is a level of fun that I'm having across the entire album that should be pretty obvious that I'm not taking myself entirely seriously on the whole thing, and that I
Mhm.
had a lot of fun mashing these ideas together and trying to make them work in like interesting ways, you know, because I'm obviously combining a few things that aren't naturally combined when you think of
Mhm.
like fantasy shit and like hip hop and metal and like
Yeah.
every coming together, you know, there's an inherent silliness in that already, you know, and I like I like putting on a show. I like being dramatic.
Mhm.
I like things to feel big and epic and over the top, you know, and I definitely went there on the album. And so just being forced to really commit. Like if I did this idea like half-assed, it would not work.
No.
Like I had to completely embody what it meant to be this person for this album, you know?
Mhm.
And I think by fully committing that hard, I think there is an inherent like over the topness and silliness that comes out and
Yeah.
fun that just comes out. And it came out when I was making it for sure. I would say
Mhm.
definitely the majority of the time I was making this shit, I was like smiling, laughing, having fun, like putting together the piece of the puzzle and always like trying to even subvert my own expectations, like
Mhm.
just pushing and seeing how out there can I get while still being like awesome and still working within the like boundaries of the album. You know, how
Mhm.
far can I push this? How like out there can I get with this vocal performance? How crazy can I get with this beat switch or you know
Yeah.
anything like that. You know, I just like I really had a lot of fun. So I'd say the primary mindset I was in was just one of fun and joy and creativity. And
Yeah.
yeah, it just felt good. It felt really good.
That's
Good.
awesome. Hell
I'm
yeah.
so happy to hear that because while listening through the record, at every single song, I was just like, dude, I know he was fucking just having a blast making
Yeah.
this because each song, you could just hear just the energy and just pleasure that you just had creating it.
Yep.
It just
Yep.
sounded like a nerd in the best way
Yeah,
was
yeah.
just just making a fucking whack ass like metal hip hop fantasy record and it was incredible.
Thank
I'm
you.
so happy to
Yeah.
hear that you had a good time making it.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm glad it comes across. I think that
100%.
I hope that it will for most people, and I think it will. It should.
Hmm
Because yeah, it's obvious when somebody's having fun making something, and
For
I was
sure.
definitely having a lot of fun making this.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So how do you recommend your fans to listen to this album for the first time? Should do in the car with friends, in the dark with headphones on? Is workout album, party album? What do you personally recommend?
Whatever they want, everybody experiences music differently. Some people love, listen at the gym. Some people love, just listen loud. That's all you got
Yeah.
to do. Just
Yeah.
listen loud. Don't be fucking pussing out all quiet, on your speaker. Just make sure you're feeling the music, whatever it is.
Mhm.
But and people can listen all the way through, straight through if they want. Of course, that's what every artist says. Like you got to listen from the first song to the last song, look all the way through, no breaks,
Yeah.
whatever. And yeah, it probably is best to do it that way.
Yeah.
But it's also okay if you just want to listen song by song or whatever, it's fine. It's meant to be enjoyed and experienced however you want to enjoy it and experience it. I'm not too picky about that. But you gotta listen loud. That's all you gotta do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Fuck yeah. So this one should be super, super quick. Off top of your head, I want you to describe this album for new listeners in 3 words. No more, no less.
Um, Nerdy,
Mhm.
epic,
Mhm.
genius.
Damn
Fuck yeah.
right.
All right. So can you talk about any particularly challenging or standout moments from the creation of this album, positive or negative?
Yeah, I can. I would say definitely there was a version of the album I was maybe like 6 months in,
Mhm.
and I was like showing it for some people. It wasn't like definitely was not like I maybe had like 6 or 7 songs and stuff. Like it was just like just starting to maybe come together into something.
Yeah.
And I would show my friends, I'd show people, and I sat down and had a conversation with
Mhm.
somebody I really respect
Mhm.
and trusted. And he was kind of just like and he said something I didn't want to hear, but I knew it was true in my
Mhm.
spirit. And he was just like, basically, he was just like, you can do better than this.
Ah.
You can do better than this. And I was just like, "Ah, you're fucking right. I can do better than this.
Yeah.
Like there's good things. There's good things here, but it doesn't feel like an album yet. It doesn't feel strong enough yet. And I have very high expectations. I had high expectations going in that I really wanted to make something that was gonna, make a statement and kind of just like really be like I said, my true spiritually, like my first album.
Yeah.
And so hearing that, I was just like, fuck. I heard it from somebody else, but it was also something that my inner voice was telling me the entire time that I just needed to hear somebody else say it out loud for me to understand that it was true. It wasn't just me being insecure, It was just like,
Yeah.
no, it's
Yeah.
true. And so I really hit the hit the drawing board after that. And a couple of the songs end up staying because,
Okay, good.
obviously out of 6 or 7 songs, and you're gonna have a couple that are pretty strong anyways. But
Mhm.
a few of the songs stayed, but I pretty much that was when I really like scrapped the album and was like, I gotta figure out what this actually is. And
Mhm.
this was before I had the fantasy band and everything. So
I was just about to
so
ask that.
it
Yeah.
it was prior to really even the concept of the album. So I feel like the album was truly born on that day when
Yeah.
I thought that I had an album starting to come together and realized I did not have an album coming together, and I had to like basically restart the entire thing. And
Yeah.
that was probably the best thing that could happen, honestly, because I needed to hear that. I needed to do
Mhm.
that. I needed to push myself harder than I was pushing myself. And yeah, that was probably the biggest hurdle. And then once I got over
Mhm.
that hurdle and started getting all the light bulbs started going off and all the fucking piece of the puzzle started happening. Because like a lot of bands, and you can tell this when you listen to their albums, like you know, a lot of bands never have that conversation and never get over that hump. They
Right.
just put out something that is good enough. Maybe
Mhm.
it's good enough to tour off of. Maybe it's good enough to get a song, on, the radio once or on a playlist somewhere or something, and then it's fine, and they just scoot by with doing something that's fine. And
Yeah.
they're not pushing themselves for greatness, but
Mhm.
I want I want greatness, and I want to make a splash whenever I do something. And I knew that I wanted it to feel like when I
Mhm.
had the album, and I knew I hadn't felt that yet. So once I got over that hump, all the juices started flowing. I started to feel a little bit more.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
fuck yeah. Do you think for future projects, obviously, because we're still talking about this one, but just in the future, do you think you're going to kind of continue with concept record type scenario where it kind of gives you a box to work with and kind of ideas to kind of write off of? Or do you think you're just gonna kind of stick to whatever happens, happens. If it sounds good, it goes on an album?
No, I think I'll stick with more concept-y things simply because I am the type of person that is very into a lot of different types of music, and I have
Mhm.
the ability to write and create a lot of different types of music.
Yeah.
And if I let myself just do whatever the fuck I'm feeling that day, I'll
Yeah.
just make a mess of it. That was what my first album was. I was just throwing everything at the wall. Every
Mhm.
song's a different genre, basically. Yeah,
Yeah.
it all has my voice, or maybe it all kind of feels like rock music or something, but like it was just all over the place. And
Mhm.
I learned through this album that like it's a thing I read in Rick Rubin's book, which of course a lot of people are aware of now, but it was very impactful to me reading this when he was talking about like sometimes it's better for certain artists to like take a few tools out of the sandbox
Mhm.
and force yourself to just work with like a couple of tools in the sandbox and like get
Yeah.
as creative as you can with these tools, and
Mhm.
it like forces you to like get genuinely creative because before my crutch would just be like, oh, if I don't like this song, I'll just like make it 10 different songs in one song or something, and it would
Yeah.
just be like, so that's exciting, but like this when I gave myself like limitations, it really
Mhm.
focused me to like, no, I gotta get like as creative and like make something great out of like
Mhm.
this small amount of things.
Yeah.
And it really pushed me to make awesome shit that feels cohesive. And I think albums should feel cohesive because that's what makes it an album. All the greatest
Exactly.
albums of all time all have a sound. They sound like one
Mhm.
big long song. Every metal band that had a huge album, that's part of what makes an album good is that it has a message, it has a sound, it has a
Mhm.
theme, it has a thing.
Yeah.
Does it have to be like this like story I've wrote this like script that I wrote for this whole story and all this character stuff? No, I don't know if I might do it. I might not do that. I don't know. But I do think that at least like musically and sonically and like brand wise, all
Mhm.
every album I do going forward will have that level of like cohesion and like, oh yeah, he made this thing. This is
Yeah.
this is what he was going for.
Hell yeah.
Good
All
to
right.
hear. Hell yeah. So for these last couple questions, we're actually gonna shift away from music, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, of course.
Great. So we're actually gonna go straight to death row.
Boom.
So if you're on death row, what would your last meal be with a drink?
Oh God.
Hmm.
Um, probably a steak
Okay.
and fries, a good
Solid.
a premium steak and fries with some good dipping sauce on the fries, a good béarnaise or like a really good ranch or something
Okay. Okay.
like that. Good chimichurri on the steak.
Yeah.
And then a good dessert, like a crazy some good dessert, like a fucking I don't know, like a creme brulee or something bougie like that, like
Yeah.
some
Fuck
some
yeah.
just really good, creamy something like
Hmm.
that. Probably nothing fruity. Probably
Okay.
something more like chocolate, ice creamy, something in that world.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
And drink, I would have well, I don't drink alcohol,
Hmm.
so would not be an alcoholic drink. But I do love me a good sparkling drink of some kind.
Yep.
Even just a good solid glass of sparkling water it's the
Hmm.
spot for me. So
Yeah.
we'll leave it at that.
All right.
Sounds great. I did peep it. Are you drinking like fucking San Pellegrinos or something?
Yeah, Mountain Valley.
I fucking knew it.
Nice.
I was god damn it. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I had to clock it. Yeah, that was it.
So if you could live in one fiction world for a week, where would you live?
Ooh, definitely have thought about this a lot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I think that for the sake of the sanctity of the album, I probably have to say Tamriel,
Mhm.
um, and specifically Skyrim. Maybe
Of
not,
course.
maybe there's a better zone in Tamriel that I could go just because Skyrim is so fucking cold and
Yeah.
mountainous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's just something I think the main thing that that game gets right is just the feeling of being in that world is just so good
Yeah.
that like even if the combat isn't that good or whatever the fuck, like just the vibes of just walking through, like I don't know if it's just purely nostalgia or what the fuck it is, but I
Yeah.
know everybody has that thing with Skyrim where you just like I'll just get these like Skyrim ASMR like TikToks and shit where it's just like the environments of Skyrim just like going
Yeah.
through, and they'll have like no, they'll make sure their profile has like no name and no hashtags or anything, no description, so you can
Yeah.
just see the full fucking thing, and it just there's something about it that just feels so cozy and so it just makes me feel good, and I
Hmm.
think it's probably just nostalgia, but I don't know, man. Something about the way that they crafted the vibes of that world just makes me want to be there so
Hmm.
badly.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah. All right.
Especially the soundtrack of it is just so
Soundtrack, oh my God. I'd love to do a
come
video
on.
game soundtrack at some point, which
You need to.
a lot of people have brought up that I should do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I'd back that.
and I think I would crush it. I do think I would do a good job. It'd have to be the right game.
Hmm.
But
Sure.
yeah, I would love to do that because so many gaming soundtracks are so good because and it's movie soundtracks, I guess, too, but like game soundtracks, especially because you spend so much time listening to them,
Yes.
that like there's just like this extra connection to the music that gets forged when
Hmm.
it's like, in a game, and I think that's very special and cool. So I'd love to do that at some point.
Hell
That'd
yeah.
be fucking huge. Yeah. So I have the honor of asking the last question. Every single person we've spoken to has actually said it is the most important question. What is your favorite color?
Um, Good question. Very
Thank you.
important for
Oh,
sure.
Thank
yes.
you.
I've always said that my favorite color is green
Okay.
because I grew up in Oregon,
Mm.
surrounded by lots of beautiful, lush green nature. And
Mhm.
I just think it's the color that makes me feel the most at peace,
Yeah.
probably for that reason. And also, my eyes are green. I don't
Nice.
wear green ever. I never wear, I don't think I've ever worn a green thing any
Damn.
time or any day in my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, but something about looking at the grass,
Hmm.
mountains, trees, like yeah, green is a good color.
All
Damn
right.
right.
Hell yeah.
Hmm.
So as Glory said, that's all the questions we have today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
Follow me on socials, Jeris Johnson, pretty much everywhere. Listen to Dragonborn. Got a tour coming up. Got two tours coming up. Going on tour Falling in Verse.
Yep.
Here starting in like a couple of weeks. I don't know when this is gonna drop, but
For
I
the
might be
record.
already on tour when it drops. And then I have my first headline tour ever, the Dragonborn tour.
Hmm.
So get your tickets for that. Come out. It's gonna be an experience. It's gonna be fun. Yeah.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So now it's been Jeris Johnson, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.